For most people today, sleep is a simple routine. You crawl into bed, turn off the lights, maybe scroll your phone a little too long, and eventually drift off. Medieval people, however, had a completely different relationship with sleep, one that would seem strange to most of us. Long before electric lights, alarm clocks, and endless streams of entertainment, nighttime followed a rhythm dictated almost entirely by nature. When darkness fell, people generally went to bed soon afterward. But they didn't usually sleep straight through the night. Instead, many followed what historians call a segmented sleep pattern. The night was divided into two separate periods of sleep. People would fall asleep shortly after sunset and remain asleep for several hours. Then they would naturally wake up sometime around midnight. This wasn't considered a problem. Nobody worried about insomnia. Nobody stared anxiously at the ceiling wondering why they couldn't stay asleep. Being awake in the middle of the night was perfectly normal. During this period, often called the watch, people spent an hour or two doing various activities before returning to bed for their second sleep. Some prayed. Others tended the fire. Farmers checked on animals. Monks read religious texts. Some people simply sat quietly and reflected on life. And according to numerous medieval sources, this was also considered one of the best times for married couples to be intimate. Physicians of the time believed that after several hours of rest, both body and mind were in an ideal state. Eventually, people returned to bed and entered their second sleep, which lasted until dawn. This pattern wasn't limited to one social class. Farmers, craftsmen, merchants, nobles, and even members of religious communities often followed a similar schedule. Interestingly, modern researchers have found evidence suggesting that this two-part sleeping pattern may actually be closer to humanity's natural rhythm than the uninterrupted 8-hour sleep cycle many people strive for today. Artificial lighting changed everything. As cities expanded and the Industrial Revolution transformed society, people were expected to work according to strict schedules. Sleep gradually became compressed into one continuous block. What had once been normal suddenly became unusual. So if you've ever found yourself awake at 2 in the morning for no apparent reason, medieval people might simply tell you that your watch has begun. Of course, sleeping schedules weren't the only thing different. The beds themselves were often a challenge. Modern mattresses are designed with comfort in mind. Companies compete over memory foam, cooling technology, pressure relief, and ergonomic support. Medieval peasants would have considered any of those features pure luxury. For many ordinary people, a bed was little more than a sack filled with straw or hay. These simple mattresses, often called pallets, were placed directly on the floor or on a basic wooden frame if the family could afford one. The straw provided some insulation from the cold ground, which was essential during harsh winters. Unfortunately, it also provided an ideal environment for insects and rodents. Lice, fleas, and even mice could easily make themselves at home within the bedding. Replacing the straw regularly helped, but many families lacked the resources to do so often. As a result, sleeping comfortably wasn't always guaranteed. Many people simply accepted occasional bites and itching as part of everyday life. Clothing didn't help much either. Most individuals slept in the same garments they wore during the day. Dedicated sleepwear was uncommon, especially among the lower classes. Privacy was equally rare. Entire families frequently shared the same sleeping space. Parents, children, grandparents, and sometimes even guests all slept within a single room. Personal space, as we understand it today, barely existed. For the wealthy, conditions were somewhat better. Nobles enjoyed large wooden beds, feather-filled mattresses, embroidered linens, and heavy curtains designed to block drafts. A luxurious bed represented wealth and status. Some were so valuable that they were listed in wills and passed down through generations. But even the finest medieval bed could not completely eliminate the realities of the era. Cold weather, insects, poor sanitation, and cramped living conditions affected nearly everyone. For most people, a bed wasn't a place of luxury. It was simply a place to survive the night. Keeping warm was another nightly challenge. Modern homes maintain comfortable temperatures year-round. Medieval houses did not. Stone walls trapped cold. Drafts slipped through cracks. Windows offered little protection against wind. Heating was limited and often ineffective. As a result, people became surprisingly creative when it came to preserving warmth. One common solution was the nightcap. Today, the term might suggest a drink before bed. In the Middle Ages, it meant an actual hat. People wore soft caps made from wool, linen, or other available materials while sleeping. The purpose was simple: prevent heat from escaping through the head. These caps often had long pointed shapes that would look somewhat amusing to modern eyes. Yet they served an important function during cold nights. Women frequently covered their hair as well, both for warmth and modesty. In some regions, married women were expected to keep their heads covered almost constantly, even while sleeping. Nightcaps could also reveal social status. Wealthier families sometimes decorated them with embroidery or expensive dyes. Even bedtime offered opportunities to display one's position in society. The cap was often paired with a long nightshirt, a loose garment that provided additional warmth. Fashion wasn't the priority. Survival was. A comfortable night's sleep required whatever layers of protection people could find. Travelers faced an entirely different set of problems. Imagine arriving at an inn after a long journey. Today, you'd expect your own room, a private bed, and perhaps even room service. A medieval traveler could expect none of those things. Most inns operated with efficiency rather than comfort in mind. If a bed had available space, it would be filled. It didn't matter whether the other occupants were friends or complete strangers. Sharing beds was common. A traveler might find themselves sleeping beside merchants, pilgrims, laborers, or individuals whose personal hygiene left much to be desired. Privacy was almost non-existent. Large sleeping halls often contained rows of beds occupied by multiple people. Snoring echoed throughout the room. Conversations continued late into the night. Personal belongings had to be carefully protected. Many travelers slept with money pouches tied directly to their bodies. Others used luggage as improvised pillows to discourage theft. Despite these inconveniences, inns still represented a safer alternative than sleeping outdoors. Outside waited cold weather, dangerous animals, thieves, and countless other risks. In comparison, sharing a crowded bed with strangers seemed perfectly reasonable. Nighttime was not only about physical comfort. It was also deeply connected to spirituality. For medieval people, going to sleep carried a certain amount of fear. Death was a constant presence. Disease, accidents, violence, and harsh living conditions meant that life could end unexpectedly. Many individuals genuinely believed that they might not wake up the next morning. As a result, bedtime prayers became an essential ritual. Before sleeping, people often recited prayers seeking protection for both body and soul. Some prayed for forgiveness. Others prayed for safety from evil spirits. Many asked for divine protection against illness. Religious belief shaped nearly every aspect of daily life, and sleep was no exception. Parents encouraged children to pray as well. Stories of angels, saints, demons, and divine judgment formed an important part of medieval culture. The night was viewed as a vulnerable time when spiritual dangers seemed especially close. Monks and nuns took these practices even further. Their final service of the day, known as Compline, marked the transition into silence and rest. Afterward, many religious communities remained quiet until morning. Sleep wasn't simply biological. It was spiritual preparation. Every night carried uncertainty. Every prayer offered reassurance. And for countless medieval people, those prayers were considered just as important as the bed itself. Dreams held a very different meaning in the medieval world. Today, most people view dreams as random mental activity, a strange collection of memories, fears, and thoughts mixed together while the brain rests. A bizarre dream might be amusing, confusing, or quickly forgotten by breakfast. Medieval people rarely saw dreams that way. To them, dreams could carry profound significance. A dream might be a message from God. It might be a warning from a saint. It could reveal hidden sins. Or, perhaps most frightening of all, it could be the work of the devil. Because of these beliefs, dreams were often analyzed with remarkable seriousness. Monks wrote about them. Priests interpreted them. Scholars debated them. A dream involving fire could suggest divine punishment. Water might symbolize purification. Animals often carried spiritual meanings. Entire books were devoted to explaining what certain dream symbols might mean. Even seemingly ordinary dreams could trigger concern if they appeared vivid enough. Many people believed the soul remained active during sleep. While the body rested, the spiritual self continued its journey. Because of this, dreams were not viewed as harmless entertainment produced by the mind. They were considered windows into deeper truths. Some individuals carefully recorded their dreams. Others sought guidance from religious authorities to understand them. A particularly unsettling dream might lead someone to confess sins, fast, or increase their prayers. The Church itself approached dreams cautiously. Not every dream was considered divine. Many clergy warned that evil forces could use dreams to deceive believers. A pleasant vision might actually be temptation. A frightening vision could be spiritual manipulation. Distinguishing between holy inspiration and demonic trickery was not always easy. As a result, people often approached dreams with a mixture of fascination and anxiety. While modern people wake up wondering why they dreamed about losing their keys, medieval people might wake up wondering whether heaven had sent them a message or whether hell had. Animals were another surprisingly common part of medieval sleep. Today, some people allow pets to sleep on the bed. In the Middle Ages, sleeping beside animals was often less about affection and more about practicality. Most peasant homes offered very limited protection from the cold. Insulation barely existed. Heating was inconsistent. Winters could be brutal. Animals generated warmth. That simple fact made them valuable nighttime companions. Dogs frequently slept indoors, chickens wandered freely through homes. Goats occasionally occupied the same living spaces as humans. In some cases, larger livestock remained nearby as well. Many peasant houses consisted of a single room where nearly every activity took place. Cooking happened there. Meals were eaten there. Children played there. And everyone slept there, including the animals. Modern standards of cleanliness would certainly not approve. Yet survival often mattered far more than comfort. A warm dog at your feet could make an enormous difference during a freezing winter night. A nearby cow might slightly raise the temperature inside a poorly insulated building. When resources were limited, every degree of warmth mattered. Wealthier families generally separated themselves from livestock. However, even nobles sometimes kept small dogs nearby. These animals served as companions, status symbols, and occasionally additional sources of warmth. Of course, sleeping with animals also came with disadvantages. Animals are noisy. They move unexpectedly. They rarely respect personal space. Yet medieval people adapted. A barking dog, a wandering chicken, or a snorting pig became part of the normal soundtrack of nightly life. For many households, sharing living space with animals was simply another reality of survival. If peasant sleeping arrangements seem uncomfortable, monastic dormitories could be even more challenging. Monasteries were not designed for luxury. Their purpose was discipline. Comfort often ranked very low among their priorities. Large dormitories housed dozens of monks together. Beds were usually simple. A wooden frame. Perhaps a thin straw mattress. Little else. Privacy was nearly non-existent. Personal possessions were minimal. Silence was strictly enforced. The famous rule of Saint Benedict encouraged discipline, obedience, and self-control. Talking during sleeping hours was generally discouraged or forbidden. Monks were expected to maintain order and avoid distractions. Even sleeping arrangements reflected spiritual values. Comfort was viewed with suspicion. Too much luxury could weaken discipline. Too much pleasure might encourage sinful thoughts. As a result, sleeping conditions remained intentionally modest. Many monks slept fully clothed. Partly this allowed them to respond quickly when nighttime prayers began. Partly it reflected broader ideals of simplicity and restraint. The dormitories themselves could become quite cold. Heating was limited. Blankets were not always abundant. If a monk felt uncomfortable, enduring that discomfort was often considered spiritually beneficial. Life in a monastery aimed to strengthen the soul rather than satisfy the body. From a modern perspective, the arrangement sounds exhausting. From the medieval religious perspective, it represented devotion. The nightly routine did not always end once monks fell asleep. In many religious communities, sleep was interrupted intentionally. Long before sunrise, bells echoed through dark hallways and stone corridors. These bells signaled the beginning of matins, one of the earliest prayer services of the day. And by early, medieval monasteries meant extremely early. Sometimes the service began around 2 or 3 in the morning. The dormitory stirred. Sleepy monks rose from their beds. Robes were adjusted. Candles flickered. And the procession toward the chapel began. The atmosphere must have been remarkable. Darkness surrounded the monastery. Only candlelight illuminated the stone walls. Voices joined together in prayer and chanting. Scripture was recited. Psalms filled the air. Meanwhile, countless monks fought a private battle against exhaustion. Historical records reveal that some occasionally fell asleep during services. This was not appreciated. Discipline could follow. Additional duties. Extra prayers. Various forms of correction. Remaining awake was considered part of spiritual commitment. The service could last an hour or more. Afterward, some monks returned to bed for another period of sleep. Others continued directly into study, work, or additional religious duties. To modern observers, waking voluntarily in the middle of the night for extended prayer seems extraordinary. For many medieval monks, it was simply routine. Their lives revolved around devotion. Sleep existed to support that devotion, not the other way around. Modern society often associates sleeping alone with comfort and independence. Medieval society generally viewed it differently. Sleeping alone could seem strange. Sometimes it even appeared suspicious. Part of the reason was practical. Body heat mattered. Sharing a bed helped everyone stay warmer. Families commonly slept together. Children slept beside siblings. Parents shared space with children. Guests might be included as well. Beds were valuable resources and rarely wasted. There were spiritual reasons too. Many people believed nighttime exposed individuals to supernatural dangers. Demons. Spirits. Temptations. Various unseen threats. Having others nearby provided reassurance. A shared sleeping arrangement offered emotional security in a world filled with uncertainty. Children especially were rarely left alone. Stories about ghosts, spirits, and supernatural creatures circulated widely. Darkness carried mystery, and mystery often carried fear. Even among adults, privacy remained uncommon. Visitors frequently shared sleeping spaces. Servants slept near employers, extended families occupied the same room. The concept of everyone having their own bedroom would have seemed remarkably extravagant. Ironically, sleeping alone sometimes functioned as punishment in certain religious settings. Isolation could serve as discipline. Communal sleeping encouraged accountability and reinforced social bonds. To medieval people, sleeping together often felt safer, warmer, and more practical than sleeping alone. Not every medieval sleeping habit involved lying down. In fact, some people deliberately chose not to sleep flat at all. To modern eyes, this sounds uncomfortable. To medieval thinkers, it often seemed sensible. Medical beliefs played a major role. Medieval medicine was based on the theory of bodily humors, a system that attempted to explain health through balances of fluids within the body. According to many physicians, sleeping completely flat could create various health problems. Some believed it interfered with digestion. Others worried it allowed harmful substances to collect in the head or chest. Whether these concerns had any scientific basis was largely irrelevant. They were widely accepted. As a result, many people preferred a partially upright sleeping position. Large pillows, bolsters, and angled supports helped elevate the upper body. Among the wealthy, beds could be arranged specifically to maintain this posture. Religious beliefs added another layer. Lying perfectly flat resembled the position of a corpse. For some individuals, that similarity felt unsettling. Remaining slightly upright distinguished sleep from death. It may sound superstitious today, But medieval society was deeply shaped by symbolism. Monastic communities occasionally pushed this idea even further. Certain religious groups embraced discomfort as a form of discipline. Sleeping on benches, leaning against walls, or resting in partially seated positions demonstrated commitment to spiritual self-denial. Comfort was not the objective. Discipline was. The result was a sleep experience that modern chiropractors would probably view with horror. Yet for many medieval people, an uncomfortable night represented virtue rather than inconvenience. Of course, posture was often the least of their problems. The true rulers of many medieval bedrooms were much smaller. Fleas, lice, and bedbugs. These creatures were nearly impossible to avoid. Poor sanitation, crowded living conditions, shared bedding, and straw mattresses created ideal environments for pests. Whether you were a peasant or a noble, insects were likely sharing your sleeping space. For ordinary families, fleas were simply part of daily life. People scratched. They complained. They endured. Life continued. Even the wealthy struggled with infestations. Expensive fabrics and luxurious beds did not magically repel insects. In some noble households, servants were assigned the unpleasant task of removing lice from clothing and hair. This was considered perfectly normal. Bedbugs were particularly troublesome. They hid inside wooden furniture, cracks in walls, mattress seams, and bedding materials. When darkness arrived, they emerged to feed. People experimented with countless methods to keep them away. Strong-smelling herbs were burned. Garlic was placed near beds. Ashes were scattered. Various folk remedies circulated from village to village. Some solutions probably helped a little. Many almost certainly did nothing. Yet people kept trying because the alternative was spending every night as a buffet for insects. What makes this especially remarkable is how common it was. Today, discovering bedbugs can feel like a household emergency. In medieval Europe, it was often just Tuesday for soldiers and knights. Sleeping comfortably could become even more difficult. Popular culture often shows knights sleeping in full armor. The reality was more complicated. Most people avoided sleeping in complete armor whenever possible. The equipment was heavy. Metal restricted movement. Chain mail pinched skin. Comfort was almost non-existent. However, during military campaigns or periods of danger, some warriors slept partially armored. Removing every piece of equipment took time. If an attack occurred during the night, precious minutes could mean the difference between life and death. As a result, soldiers sometimes kept portions of their armor on while resting. A breastplate might remain nearby. A sword could stay within arm's reach. Shields occasionally doubled as makeshift pillows. Sleeping arrangements during campaigns were rarely luxurious. Cold ground. Minimal bedding. Constant noise. Unpredictable weather. Exhausted men often slept wherever they could. Military camps were filled with snoring, coughing, conversations, and the clanking sounds of equipment. Despite the discomfort, exhaustion usually won. After marching long distances, fighting battles, and carrying heavy equipment, sleep arrived quickly. Not because conditions were ideal. Because the body demanded it. One nighttime behavior caused particular fear in medieval communities. Sleepwalking. Today, sleepwalking is recognized as a medical condition. Medieval people saw something far more mysterious. Imagine waking during the night and discovering someone wandering silently through the house with vacant eyes. In a society already filled with beliefs about spirits, demons, and supernatural forces, such behavior could appear deeply unsettling. Many people struggled to understand what was happening. Some blamed evil spirits. Others believed the soul temporarily left the body during sleep. Certain physicians attributed the condition to imbalances of bodily humors. Almost everyone had a theory. Few had accurate explanations. Sleepwalkers often became subjects of fear and fascination. Stories circulated about individuals climbing roofs, wandering through villages, or speaking strangely while asleep. Whether all these tales were true is difficult to determine. Like many medieval stories, exaggeration frequently entered the picture. Communities developed various methods to prevent nighttime wandering. Prayers, protective charms. Religious blessings. Herbal remedies. In some cases, family members simply watched more carefully. Given the dangers present in medieval homes, open fires, sharp tools, staircases, animals, and crowded spaces, sleepwalking posed genuine risks. Even without supernatural explanations, it could be dangerous. Still, medieval people rarely separated the physical world from the spiritual one. Sleepwalking existed somewhere between medicine, religion, and folklore. And that uncertainty made it particularly frightening. Perhaps the most impressive aspect of medieval sleep was the sheer ability to sleep through chaos. Modern sleepers often struggle with traffic noise, notifications, or a barking dog. Medieval people faced considerably more dramatic disturbances. Church bells rang regularly. Storms shook buildings. Animals made noise throughout the night. Neighbors lived nearby. Families shared sleeping spaces. Privacy barely existed. Yet people adapted. Church bells deserve special mention. They marked time throughout the day and night. Religious services. Community events. Warnings. Announcements. The sound became a permanent feature of daily life. Many people likely stopped noticing it altogether. Then there was weather. Without modern insulation, storms felt far more immediate. Thunder echoed through homes. Wind rattled walls. Rain leaked through roofs. Every weather event became a direct sensory experience. Still, people slept. Work demanded it. Survival required it. Life offered little opportunity for chronic insomnia. After spending entire days performing physically demanding labor, most people fell asleep regardless of conditions. Fatigue has a remarkable ability to overcome inconvenience. Even larger crises sometimes failed to stop the nightly routine. Wars erupted. Famines struck. Disease spread. Communities suffered. Yet people continued sleeping because human beings eventually must. The Black Death provides a striking example. Entire regions experienced unimaginable mortality. Fear was everywhere. Death became a daily presence. And yet every night, exhausted survivors still lay down to rest. Sleep remained one of the few escapes available. For a few hours, uncertainty faded. The dangers of the world retreated. Tomorrow's problems could wait until morning. And in a time when tomorrow itself was never guaranteed, that temporary peace carried enormous value.